Welcome to the Explainer. Sometimes you stumble across a problem that's so simple you could explain it to a kid, but so ridiculously hard that it took a supercomputer to finally solve it. What on earth do those things have in common? Well, believe it or not, they're all connected to a famous math problem that started with something incredibly simple, coloring in a map. And we're talking about a journey that took over 125 years to complete. And when it was all over, it didn't just give us an answer. It totally pushed the limits of mathematics and sparked this huge debate about what a proof even is. A debate that's still going on today. Okay, let's get right into it. What is this deceptively simple puzzle? So, picture this. It's 1852. A student named Francis Guthrie is just coloring a map of the counties in England. And he notices something interesting. He only seems to need 4 different colors to make sure that no 2 counties that share a border have the same color. So he started to wonder, is that true for any map you could possibly draw? Now, to actually solve this, mathematicians had to do what they do best: get rid of all the messy real-world stuff. They stripped away all the details of geography and turned these maps into these beautiful abstract networks called planar graphs. And the way they did this is actually pretty brilliant. You start by putting a dot, or a vertex, in the middle of each country. Then, if 2 countries share a border, you just connect their dots with a line, or an edge. And just like that, you've turned a messy cartography problem into a clean, pure math problem. All that matters now is how things are connected. So for decades, this thing was just out there, teasing the greatest mathematical minds. And at one point, everyone thought it was solved, hailed this incredible proof as the final answer, before they realized it was completely wrong. So in 1879, a British barrister and mathematician named Alfred Kempe, he publishes a proof. It was super elegant, very clever, and for 11 straight years, the entire mathematical world was like, yep, that's it, problem solved. His whole approach was a classic proof by contradiction. It's kind of like this. First, you assume the thing you're trying to prove is wrong. So you say, okay, let's pretend there is a map out there that needs 5 colors. If that's true, then there has to be a smallest one. His whole strategy was to show that you could always take this supposed 5-color map and through some clever tricks, prove it could actually be colored with 4. It was supposed to create a contradiction and boom, theorem proved. But 11 years later, a guy named Percy Heawood finds a mistake. A single, fatal flaw. Turns out Kemp's clever recoloring technique just didn't work in one very specific situation. The whole proof came crashing down. And just like that, the 4-color theorem was back to being a huge, unsolved puzzle. After all those decades of dead ends and false starts, a brand new player enters the game: the computer. Okay, so the new game plan was basically a 2-pronged attack. Think of it like a giant checklist. First, you had to prove that any map you can possibly imagine must contain at least one pattern from a specific pre-made list. That's unavoidability. Then you had to prove that every single one of those patterns could be colored with just 4 colors. That's reducibility. If you could do both, you'd have your proof. This is where Kenneth Apple and Wolfgang Haken come in. Back in 1976, these 2 mathematicians decided to do something that was, frankly, kind of nuts for the time. Computers were for crunching numbers, not for proving deep mathematical ideas. But they were going to let a computer do the brute force work. And that unavoidable set of patterns? It wasn't just a handful. We're talking 1,936 different configurations that had to be checked, each one by one. It's just a staggering number. This was a job that no human or even a team of humans could ever hope to do. It took a 1970s supercomputer over 1,200 hours to churn through every single one of those cases, but it did it. The machine proved every single configuration was reducible. The proof was complete. So this should have been a moment of pure triumph, right? A century-old problem finally put to bed. But instead, it kicked off a massive controversy. Because everyone was asking this really fundamental question. If no human being can actually sit down, read your work, and check every single step, is it really a proof? Is it even math? And you have to understand, there was some serious doubt in the community. People felt like the computer was this black box. You put the problem in and an answer comes out, but you can't see the work. The part humans could check was over 400 pages long. Even the New York Times was so nervous about another flop like Kentpis that they refused to report on it at first. But the story doesn't stop there. Because science and math, they're self-correcting, right? Over the next couple of decades, as computers got way more powerful, other mathematicians jumped in. A team in 1996 managed to cut down the number of configurations to 633 and created a much faster, more elegant program. And then, in 2005, we got the final nail in the coffin for any doubters. A new kind of software, a proof assistant, was used to formally verify the entire thing. This tool didn't just rerun the numbers, it proved that the actual logic of the computer programs themselves was sound. That was it. The debate was over. The theorem was proven. So, after all that, you might be wondering, why does this matter today? What's the big deal? Well, its impact goes way, way beyond just coloring in some maps. And here's the funny, kind of ironic part. The theorem, it's not actually all that useful for real-life map makers. They deal with all sorts of weird stuff the theorem doesn't, like countries in two separate pieces. No, its real legacy, its true impact is so much bigger. First, it completely changed the game by pioneering the whole field of computer-assisted proofs. And second, it supercharged the development of graph theory, the very same math that's now essential for modeling everything, from how diseases spread, to social networks, to the unbelievably complex logistics that make our world run. So a journey that started with a simple question about a map of England ended up opening this incredible door, a new partnership between human creativity and raw computing power. And it really just leaves you wondering, doesn't it? What's the next impossible problem that this partnership is going to solve?